Hey guys, I'm PandaTang and this is the assault rifle comparison. This is primarily the fully automatic assault rifles and not the semi-automatic assault rifles, as I'll be doing the semi-automatic assault rifles by themselves in a separate video. As always, for the kits I'll be using the same setup, the red dot sight and magnum ammo. The following weapons have been patched: the AEK-971, F2000, AN94 and AUG. The damage has been increased over long range to balance them with other assault rifles. Well, let's get started. First up is the AEK-971 Vintovka. The Vintovka does good damage and has a fast fire rate. It has a fast reload rate and a low recoil. It has a decent magazine size of 30 bullets. This ensures that you are able to take out multiple targets, but this is the typical amount that you get with the other assault rifles as well. At long range, the Vintovka does the same amount of damage as it does at close range. This is great as it ensures the player that you are able to do the same amount of damage, whereas other weapons, they do have damage decrease. Hip firing with this weapon is absolutely fine as well. You won't see yourself struggling to kill someone at close range with it. And overall, the weapon is great, it's very reliable. As far as I know, there isn't much kickback with it. It does good damage, so at all ranges, don't be afraid to use it, because it does do the same constant damage that it does at close range. This is probably the best feature about the Vintovka. As with other weapons, there is a damage decrease, because for players who tend to hang back, this weapon is great for you as the damage isn't that much different from any other assault rifles. And personally, I think it suits for all types of players, offensive and defensive players. Next up is the XM8 Prototype. The XM8 Prototype has high damage compared to the Vintovka, but has a slow fire rate compared to it. It has a slightly faster reload rate, same recoil but high kickback. It also has the same magazine size as the Vintovka. At long range, the XM8 Prototype does have damage decrease, but it still does the same amount of damage as the Vintovka at close and long range. Hip firing with this weapon is fine as well, but it does have a little bit more spread compared to the Vintovka. But really, you won't recognise this during combat. Overall, the XM8 Prototype is a good damage weapon. It has a slower fire rate compared to the Vintovka, but it does deal out the same amount of damage as the Vintovka over at long range. However, this doesn't mean that the Vintovka is useless, as you still got to take in the fact that it has a slow fire rate, so even if they were matched up together, the Vintovka will still win due to its faster fire rate. The weapon is also reliable, and at long range you'll be fine as long as you burst fire. This is due to the kickback it has, and at long range you'll recognise that the kickback is there. And in my personal opinion, I highly recommend this weapon to offensive players. Next up is the F2000 Assault. The F2000 Assault is the lowest damage weapon in the assault category, but has the fastest fire rate compared to the other weapons. It basically has the same reload rate as the Vintovka, but the recoil is slightly less than the Vintovka and XM8 Prototype. However, it does have a higher kickback, same as the XM8 Prototype. For long range, the F2000 does the same amount of damage as it does at close range. This is similar to the Vintovka. Hip firing with this weapon is fine. It does have a slightly less spread compared to the other weapons. Overall, the F2000 is a fast fire rate weapon. However, I feel this weapon is let down by the damage. Personally, I feel this weapon just doesn't work in core mode, so this weapon may be recommended for hardcore users. I feel that this weapon isn't too reliable, as even at close range, the weapon just doesn't kill anyone at all. So this basically says that at long range, this weapon just can't be that reliable as well. As for the fast fire rate, I just feel that it doesn't help that much, because even then the damage is too low to even make the fire rate worth it. As I mentioned before, this is probably best for hardcore players, but if I had to decide what playstyle it is really recommended towards to, then I would say defensive players really. But even then, you'll have to get the first shots in before the other person does, as having a one-on-one match, you probably won't win. Next up is the STG.77 AUG. The AUG deals the same amount of damage as the XM8 Prototype. It has a slow fire rate compared to the XM8. It has the same reload rate as the Vintovka, but has a slightly less recoil compared to XM8. For long range combat, the AUG does the same amount of damage as the F2000 as it does in close range and long range. So this weapon suffers from a massive damage decrease, being a close range damage like XM8, but being a long range damage like the F2000. Hit firing with this weapon is fine, except it does have the highest spread count. Overall, the AUG is a high damage weapon at close range, but is a weapon that will let you down at long range due to its massive damage decrease. This isn't helped by the fact that it has the slowest fire rate compared to the F2000, so having the F2000 damage but with a slower fire rate is definitely not a good thing. For me, the weapon at times can be a great weapon to use, but sometimes it's a weapon that can be a stagger to you. So this is still a reliable weapon to use at times, but honestly, if you're going to use a weapon, XM8 Prototype is probably the best choice. This is due to the fact that the weapon is not better than the XM8 Prototype, or equal to the XM8 Prototype at least. I would recommend close range combat people to be able to use this weapon efficiently. Finally, the M416. The M416 deals high damage like the XM8 Prototype. It has the same fire rate as the AUG and has the same recoil as the AUG. However, it has the lowest kickback compared to the other weapons. It also has the fastest reload rate compared to the other assault rifles. For long range combat, the M416 deals the same amount of damage as the Vintovka and XM8 Prototype. So expect to deal the same amount of damage as the XM8 Prototype, but with a low fire rate. Hit firing on this weapon is also fine, but the spread count is the same as the AUG. Overall, the weapon deals high damage, but compared to the XM8 Prototype, if you're planning to fight one-on-one, they have the faster fire rate. However, all is not lost as you do have the lower recoil compared to the XM8, and you also have a far less kickback compared to it, making long range combat a breeze, so that's your upper hand. The M416 is a very reliable gun. It definitely deserves its place as a last weapon to get. It's effective and reliable at every range, and personally I think it suits for every playstyle out there. So for offensive players, you'll take out multiple targets at the same time, and for defensive players who like to hang back, shooting at long range, this is great in terms of having low kickback, along with low recoil as an assault weapon. And my most recommended weapon would have to be the XM8 Prototype. This is because it has high damage and has a fast fire rate, and in terms of reliability, this weapon does not let you down. The M416 makes a good rival to this weapon, however the higher kickback on the XM8 Prototype does not bother me, though I would recommend the M416 if you don't like the high kickback on the XM8. And another weapon which I would like to recommend, and I feel is underrated, would have to be the AEK-971 Vintovka. I feel this weapon is never used once people start unlocking other weapons, and honestly I think this weapon deserves more, because it is reliable, it deals good damage, is always a constant damage at every range, and there isn't really a recognisable recoil, because it's pretty much like the M416, and it has the second fastest fire rate. Anyway, this is the end of the review. I hope you guys learned a thing or two about the weapons, so please like, comment and subscribe.